Chapter 1. The Girl Who Stayed Different. Elena Parker was a simple girl. She lived in the United States with her parents. She was 27 years old. She was kind, polite, and honest. She liked to stay quiet. Many girls in her college liked parties, music, and boyfriends. But Elena was not like them. She never talked to boys for fun. She said to her mother, "Mom, I don't want a boyfriend. I want to stay clean for my husband." Her mother looked at her with love and said, "You are special, my dear." Elena helped her mother every morning. She cooked, cleaned, and went to college. Her father was proud of her. He said, "You are the best daughter any father can have." Elena smiled and said softly, "I just try to do good things." She never wanted to hurt anyone. She never used bad words. She always said thank you and sorry. Everyone liked her because she respected all people. At college, some girls laughed at her. One girl said, "You never go out with anyone. Don't you feel alone?" Elena smiled and said, "No, I feel happy inside. I don't need attention." Her heart was strong. She did not care what others thought about her. She believed that one day she would meet the right man who would love her truly. Elena never watched bad shows, never drank alcohol, and never went to late-night places. She said to her friend once, "Peace is my favorite thing." Her friend laughed, but Elena stayed calm. She liked to read and stay with her parents. Her life was simple and full of respect. But time was moving. One night, her father said, "Elena, you are 27 now. You should get married." She looked at him and smiled. "Dad, I never liked anyone. You can choose for me. I will marry the man you think is right." Her parents were surprised. Her mother asked again, "Really? You never liked any boy?" Elena said quietly, "No, Mom. I just want a good husband who loves me." Her parents felt proud. Her mother said, "You are not like other girls. You are pure." Her father said, "We will find a good man for you." They both smiled, but they were also a little worried. The world was changing fast. Good men were hard to find. After a few days, Elena's father met his old friend. His friend said, "My son Jason is not married yet. He runs my company. He is a smart boy." Elena's father was happy. He thought, "Maybe this is the man for my daughter." He did not know about Jason's bad habits. He only saw his friend's success. When he came home that night, he told his wife and daughter, "I met a friend today. His son is single. Maybe we should meet him." Elena said with a soft smile, "If you think he is right, I will meet him." Her mother touched her hand and said, "You trust us so much." Elena nodded. "Yes, Mom. You always make good choices." That night, Elena sat alone for a while. She looked at her small photo frame of her family and said in her heart, "I only want peace and a kind husband." She did not know what life was planning for her. She did not know that her choice to trust her parents would bring both love and pain. But she was calm. She believed that whatever comes, she will face it with faith. She smiled and whispered, "One day I will meet him, the man who is written for me." Then she closed her eyes and went to sleep with peace in her heart. Chapter 2. The proposal days passed after that talk. Elena's father could not stop thinking about his old friend's son. He believed it was a good idea. One evening he said to his wife, "I met Mr. Williams last week. He is rich and kind. His son Jason looks like a nice man. Maybe we should meet him." Her mother agreed. "If he is good, our daughter will be happy." They both smiled and felt hope inside. Next morning, her father called Mr. Williams and fixed a small meeting. When he told Elena about it, she just nodded. "If you think it's right, Dad, I will meet him," she said quietly. Her voice was calm. Her mother looked at her and said, "You are not nervous?" Elena smiled a little. "No, Mom. I trust you. You both always choose the best for me." A few days later, Jason and his parents came to meet them. Jason spoke politely. He said nice things and smiled often. Elena only answered with short words. She didn't know what to say. Inside, she prayed silently. "God, please guide me. Show me if he is the right one." After they left, her parents looked happy. Her father said, "He seems perfect. Well-mannered, good family, good job." Her mother said, "Yes, he looks nice. He will keep her happy." Elena said nothing. She trusted her parents completely. Later that night, her mother asked, "What do you think?" Elena said softly, "If you both think he is good, I will marry him." Her father touched her head and said, "You are a blessing to us." Soon the talk of marriage began. Jason called Elena once after the meeting. He said, "You looked beautiful that day." She said softly, "Thank you." He continued, "You seem different from other girls." She replied, "Yes, I don't talk much." Jason laughed and said, "That's fine. I talk enough for both." She smiled for the first time. When she told her mother about the call, her mother said, "He sounds caring." Elena didn't say much. Her heart was quiet. She didn't feel love, but she felt peace because her parents were happy. She only thought, maybe love will come later. The next few days were full of small discussions. Jason's parents came again and fixed the date. Elena's father said proudly, "Everything is decided. Our daughter will be married next month." Her mother's eyes filled with tears. "My little girl will have her own home now," she said. Elena hugged her and whispered, "Don't cry, Mom." "I'm not going far." Jason began to call her every evening. Sometimes he talked about his business, sometimes about his friends. He said, "You will like my world." Elena just listened and said, "I hope your world has peace." He laughed again, not understanding what she really meant. She didn't know that his world was full of noise and problems. One evening, her father sat beside her and said, "Elena, I'm happy. Jason's family is good. You will have everything." She looked at him and said softly, "Dad, I don't want everything. I just want peace and love." Her father smiled. "You will have both." Soon the wedding preparations began. Her parents were excited. They bought clothes, jewelry, and gifts. Elena helped her mother with calm hands. Her mother asked, "You never asked for anything for yourself." Elena smiled and said, "My peace is my gift." Her mother hugged her tightly. A few days before the wedding, Jason sent her a small message. It said, "Can't wait to start our new life." Elena read it and smiled faintly. She whispered, "I hope our new life is full of respect." She didn't know that soon her life would take a turn she never imagined. On the wedding day, her father said, "You are my pride." Elena replied softly, "And you are my strength." Her mother was crying and smiling together. Jason looked handsome and confident. Everyone said, "Perfect match." Elena stood beside him quietly. She said in her heart, "God, please protect this bond." When the ceremony ended, her father looked at her and said, "Now you are not only my daughter, you are someone's wife." She smiled with tears in her eyes. "I will always be your daughter too," she whispered. That night, when she sat in the car with Jason for the first time as husband and wife, she looked outside and stayed silent. Jason looked at her and said, "You don't talk much, do you?" She smiled softly. "Sometimes silence is peace," she said. He laughed and said, "You'll learn to talk more in my world." Elena looked down and thought quietly, "Maybe I will learn, or maybe I will change his world instead." She didn't know that her life was about to change in ways she never expected. The girl who stayed different was stepping into a world that would soon test her heart and her faith. Like, subscribe, and share. Read this story and many more on our website, bookishenglish.com. Link in the description. Chapter 3. The Meeting. The next week came faster than Elena expected. Her parents were busy preparing for her marriage. She helped them quietly and never complained. When her mother asked, "Are you nervous?" she smiled and said, "No, Mom." "I'm just thankful." She tried to stay calm, but her heart was full of new feelings. She had never talked to a man before. Now she was going to start a whole life with one. On the day she met Jason again, she wore a simple dress and stood with her parents. Jason came with a confident smile. He spoke sweetly to everyone. He said, "Elena, you look perfect today." She answered softly, "Thank you." Her father looked happy. He whispered to his wife, "See, they look good together." Jason talked a lot about his business, his car, and his dreams. Elena listened silently. When he said, "You will love my world," she said, "I only want peace and respect." He nodded but didn't really understand. After the meeting, Jason's family agreed on the marriage. Elena's parents were full of joy. Her mother hugged her and said, "Your new life is beginning." Elena smiled, but her heart was quiet. That night she prayed, "God, please make him a good man." She slept with faith and hope. Soon, the wedding day arrived. It was full of people, gifts, and music, but Elena didn't care about any of that. She looked at her father and said, "Dad, I will never forget what you taught me." He held her hand and said, "Be strong and kind always." Her mother kissed her forehead and whispered, "You will always be my little girl." When Jason placed the ring on her finger, she felt a strange mix of fear and trust. She said to herself, "I will try to be a good wife." Jason smiled for the cameras and whispered, "You are lucky to have me." She smiled politely and said nothing. She believed that time would teach them to understand each other. After marriage, the first few weeks were full of smiles. Jason took her for dinner, brought her small gifts, and called her my peace. She laughed softly and said, "Then keep me safe." He promised, "I will never hurt you." Those words sounded real at that moment. She wanted to believe him. She sent a message to her mother saying, "Everything is fine. He is kind to me." Her mother replied with love, "Stay happy, my child." But slowly, small things began to change. Jason started coming home late. He said, "Work is too much." She believed him. One night she waited for him with food on the table. He came drunk and said loudly, "Don't look at me like that." She said calmly, "I was just waiting." He threw his keys on the table and said, "You don't need to wait. I can handle myself." She stayed quiet. The next morning, he said sorry and hugged her. "It will not happen again," he said. She smiled and forgave him. She wanted peace, not fights. But peace didn't last. Another week, the same thing happened. He came home drunk again. She tried to speak kindly. "Jason, please stop drinking. It hurts you and me." He laughed and said, "You talk like a teacher." She turned away and cried softly. Still, she tried to fix everything. She cooked his favorite food, wrote him small notes, and prayed every night for his change. She believed that patience could heal anything. Sometimes he became sweet again. He bought her flowers and said, "I'm sorry." She smiled and said, "I just want us to be happy." But slowly, the distance between them grew. Jason began ignoring her feelings. He looked at his phone all the time, talking to people she didn't know. When she asked, "Who are they?" he said, "Friends. Don't act like a mother." Those words hurt her deeply. That night she sat quietly in the dark and whispered, "God, I didn't ask for money. I only asked for love. Why is this happening?" The next day, she told herself to stay strong. She decided she would not cry anymore. She promised, "I will try one more time." She went to Jason and said, "Let's eat together tonight. I made your favorite food." He said coldly, "I already have plans." She looked at him and said softly, "I just wanted some time with you." He didn't even answer. She watched him walk out and felt like a part of her heart walked with him. That night, she called her mother. She didn't tell the full truth, but said, "He comes home late sometimes." Her mother said, "Every marriage has small problems. Be patient." Elena said, "Yes, Mom. I will try." She hung up and cried silently. A few days later, Jason didn't come home for 2 nights. When he returned, she asked gently, "Where were you?" He said sharply, "Don't question me." She said in a low voice, "I was just worried." He looked angry and said, "You think too much. Stop acting like a saint." She turned away. She didn't answer. That night she wrote in her small notebook, "I married for peace, but peace is leaving me." She looked at her wedding ring and whispered, "Please, God, show me a way." She didn't know that this was just the beginning of a long storm in her life. But even in that moment of pain, she still believed one day he might change. She still prayed for him every night because her heart was made of hope, not hate. Chapter 4. The change begins. Days passed slowly, and Elena kept trying to fix her marriage. She woke up early, cooked for Jason, and waited for him every evening. Sometimes he came home and said, "You're still awake?" She smiled softly and said, "I can't sleep before you come." He didn't reply. He just walked away. She sat quietly, hiding her pain. Inside, she prayed, "God, please bring peace between us." At first, she thought these were small problems. She believed time could heal everything. But Jason's behavior became colder every week. He didn't ask how she was. He didn't smile anymore. When she tried to talk, he said, "Stop giving lectures." She stood there, holding her tears. She didn't want to fight. She only wanted love. One night, he came home late again. She waited with food. He was drunk. His words were sharp and cruel. "Why do you sit here like a statue? Don't you have a life?" She said quietly, "My life is with you." He laughed loudly and said, "Then you must be bored." She lowered her eyes and whispered, "You're hurting me." He didn't care. He walked away to his room, leaving her broken again. The next morning she brought him coffee and said softly, "Jason, please stop drinking. It's not good for you." He looked angry and said, "You don't tell me what to do." She didn't answer. She knew shouting back would only make things worse. She sat near him and said, "I'm not trying to control you. I just care for you." He got up and said coldly, "You care too much. That's the problem." Then he left the room. That night, she sat alone and thought about her life. She remembered the girl she was before marriage, full of hope, full of dreams. Now she felt empty. She whispered to herself, "I wanted peace, but I found pain." Still, she didn't give up. She believed that maybe someday Jason would see her love. One weekend, Jason's friends came to the house. They brought bottles and music. Elena stayed silent. She served them food, smiled, and walked away. One of the friends said jokingly, "Your wife is too quiet." Jason laughed and said, "Yes, she acts like a saint." Those words cut her heart deeply. She went to her room and cried softly. She said to herself, "He laughs at my goodness." Later that night, when everyone left, Jason came inside. She wiped her tears quickly. He said, "You should talk more when my friends are here." She said gently, "I don't drink or joke like them. I don't fit in your group." He said, "Then learn to fit. You can't stay like this forever." She said with tears in her eyes, "You married me for who I am, not for what others are." He didn't answer. He turned on his phone and ignored her. Days kept moving. Jason's drinking grew worse. He came home angry for no reason. Once he broke a cup and shouted, "Stop looking at me with those eyes." She said softly, "What did I do?" He shouted again, "Everything. You make me feel guilty." She walked away quietly and sat in a corner. She said in her heart, "Why does love turn into hate?" One evening, she found him talking on the phone and smiling. When she asked, "Who are you talking to?" he said coldly, "A friend." She said softly, "You don't smile like that with me anymore." He looked annoyed. "You're starting again?" She whispered. "I'm just missing you." He walked away without a word. That night she wrote in her notebook, "I am trying, but he doesn't see my love." She closed it and prayed again. "God, please give him peace. Help him see what he is losing." A week later, her father called. "How are you, Elena?" She said quickly, "I'm fine, Dad." "Everything is good." He said, "You sound tired." She smiled and lied. "Just busy." She didn't want to break his heart. After the call, she cried like a child. She whispered, "I wish I could tell him the truth." Soon after, Jason came home with anger in his voice. He said, "I lost a deal today. I need peace." She said kindly, "You can talk to me." "I'll listen," he shouted. "No, you never understand." She looked down and said, "I only wanted to help." He left again, slamming the door. That night, she sat near the bed and held her wedding ring in her hand. She said softly, "I will not give up." Her heart was tired, but her love was still alive. She believed that good always wins in the end. But deep inside, she started to understand something. She realized that love cannot survive when only one person is trying. She said to herself, "Maybe one day he will regret this. Maybe one day he will remember the woman who prayed for him." She closed her eyes and whispered, "God, please give me the strength to face whatever comes next." Like, subscribe, and share. Read this story and many more on our website, bookishenglish.com. Link in the description. Chapter 5. Nights of Tears. Elena's days started to feel longer. Her smile was fading little by little. She tried to live normally, but every night ended in pain. Jason's drinking became worse. He now came home drunk almost every night. Sometimes he spoke loudly. Sometimes he laughed for no reason. And sometimes he said things that broke her heart. One night, she waited for him again. When he came home, she said softly, "You're late." He looked at her with tired eyes and said, "Don't start. I'm already stressed." She said calmly, "I just worry about you." He shouted, "You make me angry when you talk like that." She stayed quiet, holding her tears. When he left the room, she whispered, "Why does my love hurt him?" The next morning, she tried to act normal. She made breakfast and said gently, "Please eat something before going." He said coldly, "I'm not hungry." She looked at him and said, "You'll get sick if you skip meals." He laughed and said, "You act like my mother." Her eyes became wet, but she smiled and said softly, "I act like a wife who cares." He didn't reply. Later that week, Jason brought his friends home again. They were loud and laughing. He told her to bring food for everyone. She served them quietly. One of his friends said, "Your wife doesn't talk much." Jason replied, "She's old-fashioned." Everyone laughed. Elena turned away and walked to her room. Her heart was breaking. She said to herself, "He makes jokes about my silence, but my silence hides my pain." That night, after everyone left, she tried to talk to him. "Jason, please stop bringing people home every night. I feel so alone in my own house." He said, "Don't start again, Elena. You always complain." She said softly, "I'm not complaining. I'm crying inside." He didn't care. He turned on the TV and ignored her words. The next day, she found a lipstick mark on his shirt. She froze for a moment. Her heart started shaking. When he came home, she said quietly, "Jason, can I ask something?" He said, "What now?" She showed him the shirt and said, "This is not my lipstick." He laughed and said, "It's nothing. Stop acting like a detective." She said in a trembling voice, "Please don't hurt me like this." He looked at her with cold eyes and said, "You're too emotional." Then he walked away. Elena couldn't sleep that night. She sat near the bed, holding her wedding ring. She whispered, "I did everything for this marriage. Why is it breaking?" She cried until her eyes burned. Still, she prayed, "God, please change him. I know there is goodness inside him." The next morning, she left a small note for him on the table. It said, "I still believe in you. Please stop drinking. Please come back to me." When he saw the note, he smiled for a second, but then threw it in the bin. He said to himself, "She doesn't understand me." Her father called that evening. "Elena, how is everything?" She said quickly, "Everything is fine, Dad." He said, "You sound tired." She replied, "Just busy, Dad." She didn't have the courage to tell him the truth. After the call, she cried again. She said softly, "I can't tell my parents that their daughter is breaking from inside." Jason's behavior became worse with each passing week. Once, he came home at midnight and shouted, "Why are the lights off?" She said quietly, "I was waiting for you." He shouted again, "Don't wait for me." "I don't like pressure." She whispered, "It's not pressure, it's love." He said, "Then stop loving me like that." His words hit her like a knife. She didn't reply. She just walked to her room and cried until she couldn't breathe. One evening, when he came home, he said, "I want to go out with friends again." She said softly, "Can you spend one night with me?" He said coldly, "I'm not a prisoner." She said in a shaking voice, "I didn't ask for the world. I just wanted a little time." He turned and said, "You talk too much." Then he slammed the door and left. That night was the worst for Elena. She cried so much that she fainted for a few minutes. When she woke up, she said to herself, "Maybe this is how love dies, not with one fight, but with many small cuts." She looked up and whispered, "God, please give me strength. I can't live like this anymore." The next morning, Jason didn't even notice her red eyes. He said, "I'm going out again." She looked at him and said quietly, "One day you will miss this silence." He didn't answer. He just walked away. Elena sat alone, feeling empty. She didn't hate him, but she couldn't love him the same anymore. She said to herself, "He broke every piece of my heart, but I still pray for him." She didn't know how long she could live like this, but one thing was clear. Her soul was tired now. She said softly, "I stayed different for love, but maybe love doesn't stay for me." She wiped her tears and promised herself, "If tomorrow is worse, I will make a decision. I can't live in pain forever." Her heart still hoped for a miracle, but her mind had already started preparing for goodbye. Like, subscribe, and share. Read this story and many more on our website, bookishenglish.com. Link in the description. Chapter 6. The Breaking Point. Elena's life was now full of silence. She stopped waiting for love. She only waited for peace. Every day she tried to stay strong, but her heart was slowly giving up. Jason's behavior had become worse than ever. He didn't care what she felt. He came home late, drunk, and angry for no reason. One evening, he came home shouting, "Why is my shirt not ready?" he asked. She said quietly, "You didn't tell me which one." He threw the shirt on the floor and said, "You never understand anything." She looked at him with tired eyes and said, "I understand everything. You just don't care anymore." He walked away without a word. She sat down and cried. She said softly, "I don't know how long I can live like this." A few days later, Jason brought his friends again. This time there were 2 women with them. He told Elena, "Serve drinks for everyone." She said, "It's already late." "Can we talk tomorrow?" He shouted, "Do what I say." She looked at the floor and did what he wanted. One of the women smiled and said, "Your wife is quiet." Jason replied, "She is boring." Elena felt her heart break again. She went to her room and cried till her voice disappeared. That night, when everyone left, she tried to speak. "Jason, please stop this. You're hurting me." He said coldly, "Stop acting like a saint." She said in a low voice, "You don't see my pain." He laughed and said, "Pain? You live like a queen." "What pain?" Then he walked away. She stood there, frozen. She whispered, "I never wanted to be a queen. I only wanted love." Next morning she felt weak, but still cooked for him. When he came to the table, he said, "I'm not hungry." She said softly, "You never eat what I make." He looked angry again and said, "Stop this drama." She said calmly, "It's not drama. It's my heart breaking." He didn't listen. One night she found him talking on the phone with someone. He was smiling. She said, "Who is that?" He said, "It's my friend." She said, "A woman?" He looked at her and said, "So what if it is?" Her eyes filled with tears. She said, "Jason, please don't do this to me." He replied coldly, "Then stop checking my phone." She said softly, "I just wanted to feel safe." He said, "You never will." That was the first time she truly felt her world falling apart. Later that week, he told her not to sleep in their room. He said, "I need space." She asked, "What did I do wrong?" He said, "Everything." That night she slept on the floor holding her pillow. She whispered, "God, I have no one to talk to except you." The next morning she woke up with a headache and pain in her chest. She tried to stand, but her body was shaking. When Jason saw her, he said, "Don't act sick now." She said weakly, "I'm not acting." He didn't believe her. She fell on the floor and fainted. When she opened her eyes, she was in the hospital. Her mother was crying beside her. Her father was holding her hand and saying, "You are safe now." She said softly, "Dad, I can't go back there." He looked at her with tears in his eyes and said, "You don't have to." Her mother said, "You gave your best, my child." Now think about yourself. Jason didn't come to the hospital. He didn't even call. That silence gave Elena her answer. When she went home with her parents, she packed her things quietly. She looked around once and said, "I tried everything. I failed, but I tried with all my heart." A few days later, she signed the divorce papers. Her hands were shaking. Her father said softly, "You're free now." She said, "Yes, Dad, but it doesn't feel like freedom yet." He said, "It will, soon." She smiled sadly. After the divorce, Jason didn't care. He told his friends she was too emotional. But when he came home and saw her empty side of the bed, he felt strange. For the first time, he felt alone. Elena, on the other side, sat with her mother and said, "I did everything I could." Her mother held her hand and said, "Sometimes doing your best is not enough when the other person doesn't want to change." Elena nodded slowly. She said, "I still wish peace for him." That night she looked at her wedding ring one last time. She said softly, "Goodbye, Jason. You were my prayer once, but now you're my lesson." She placed the ring in a small box and closed it. From that day, she decided she would live for herself. No more tears, no more waiting. Her heart was tired, but free. She said quietly, "I will find my peace again." And for the first time in a long time, she smiled. It was a small smile, but it was real. Chapter 7. The New Beginning. After the divorce, Elena moved to a small apartment. Her parents helped her, but she said, "I will manage." Her mother cried and said, "You are still our little girl." Elena smiled and said softly, "I have cried enough. Now I want peace." The first few weeks were hard. She felt lonely but not broken. She started teaching at a small school. The children smiled at her, and that made her heart lighter. She said to herself, "Maybe this is where healing starts." Every morning she looked in the mirror and said, "I'm not weak anymore." One day her friend from college called and said, "Elena, you changed. You sound peaceful." She replied, "Because I stopped fighting for someone who never wanted me. Now I fight for myself." Those words felt powerful even to her. She began to read again, eat on time, and sleep without fear. Sometimes at night she still thought about Jason, not with hate, but with sadness. She whispered, "I hope you are okay, even if you never said sorry." Her pain turned into quiet strength. She started helping women who faced similar problems. When they cried, she said gently, "Don't lose yourself trying to save someone else." Her calm voice helped many hearts. Months passed. Elena smiled more often now. Her parents visited her one Sunday. Her father said proudly, "You look happy." She said softly, "Happiness is simple, Dad. I just stopped expecting love from the wrong person." Her mother held her hand and said, "You are our pride, Elena looked at them and said, I used to think my story ended with pain. But maybe pain was the door to peace. She had no anger, no bitterness, just peace that came from inside. Sometimes people asked her, Will you marry again? She smiled and said, I don't know. But this time, I will choose love that feels safe, not perfect. Everyone admired her courage. She had become stronger, wiser, and softer at the same time. She started writing small notes for herself every night. One of them said, You are free. You survived. Another said, Some endings are not sad. They are the beginning of peace. One evening, she looked out and whispered, I'm proud of the woman I became. Then she smiled again, the same soft, kind smile that never left her even in pain. Her heart, once broken, now learned how to live again. She didn't need anyone to make her feel complete. She was already whole. And that night, before sleeping, she whispered to herself, Peace is not something I found. It's something I created. Chapter 8. The regret time passed quietly. Elena's life was now simple and peaceful. She worked, helped others, and smiled more often. One day she saw a message from an unknown number. It said, I am sorry. She knew who it was. It was Jason. For a moment her heart stopped. She read the message again but didn't reply. She said to herself, Some apologies come too late. That night, Jason sat alone in his big house. His friends had left him. His company was losing money. He looked around and realized he had everything but peace. He whispered, I lost her. I lost the only person who truly cared. He remembered the nights she waited for him, the food she cooked, the prayers she made. He could still hear her soft voice saying, Please stop drinking. He closed his eyes and said, I should have listened. Tears came, but no one was there to see. Elena, on the other side, had already forgiven him in her heart. She didn't hate him anymore. She said quietly, He was part of my story, not my ending. She was free now. She had found meaning in her pain. She used that pain to help others find hope. A few months later, they met at a charity event. Jason saw her standing there, calm and confident. He walked toward her slowly and said, Elena, you look peaceful. She smiled kindly and said, Peace takes time. He looked down and whispered, I destroyed everything. She said softly, No, you taught me what peace really means. Then she walked away. Jason watched her go with tears in his eyes. He whispered, She was my light, and I turned it off. That night, he couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the woman who once prayed for him and now lived without him. Elena went home and wrote one last line in her notebook. Some people come into your life to break you, but they end up building you instead. She smiled and closed the book. She whispered, I'm finally free. Her eyes were calm, her heart was strong, and her story was complete. Like, subscribe and share. Read this story and many more on our website, bookishenglish.com. Link in the description. The end.